Theme parks are known for their immersive environments with creative sets. But did you know that many elements featured in these amusement settings is actually art from the past? My name is Chris, and I'm an art historian and theme park fan, and I want to tell you the background of many of the things you commonly see around you. The Great Wave off Kanagawa is one of the most famous pieces of art in the world. It was created by Katsushika Hokusai and can commonly be seen in many places. You probably didn't know you've seen it, or even used it as emoji in some way. I came across it at Universal City Walk Hollywood. There it was etched into one of the glass windows surrounding a patio of a Japanese restaurant. Epcot has used it for the Festival of the Arts Figment Scavenger Hunt. It's so common that its significance is often missed. Hokusai was an artist in the 1800s. He was born in 1760 and died in 1849. At one point, he came up with a manual of drawing, a how-to for anyone wanting to practice the art. This was called a manga, which is translated to be a manual of drawing, and not to be mistaken for the Japanese comic books of today. According to A. Hyatt Mayer and Yasuko Bechiko, he had a more blunt way of using line and color in his art than any of his contemporaries. His most famous print is properly named Under the Wave off Kanagawa, but we commonly refer to it as the Great Wave in modern times. It was part of a series of prints that featured Mount Fuji. Sometimes the mountain would be large, and other times, like in this print, it was somewhat small in the background. These prints were called the 36 Views of Fuji. This type of woodblock printing was called ukiyo-e and were mass prints for people to purchase. Commonly, these prints were of landscapes or famous entertainers around Tokyo, or Edo as it was called during that time. The blocks are a little like they sound. An artist would take a wood block and then carve into it to form an image. The greater the depth, the more ink would be there. Then it got transferred to paper by pressing it onto the block. The color would be done by brushing ink onto various parts of the wood block. During the mid-1800s, Japan opened trading back up to other countries, especially Western nations. These were places in Europe and the Americas. Hokusai's manual and prints were a huge hit among European traders and especially artists. The popularity coined the term Japanism, which is seen as a genre of art that influenced artists during that time. There were 5,000 to 8,000 impressions made of the Great Wave that were purchased and distributed among customers of the new Japanese trade. It was so popular that the original wood blocks had to be redone. According to Will Edmunds, some portions of the wood blocks were taken out to make the prints faster and cheaper to produce. And because of that, it makes it hard to tell exactly when a print was produced, when it's found by a collector or museum. According to Phylis Floyd, there is evidence that the prints and even Hokusai's manual made it to Europe as early as the 1860s. Several were acquired by the French public collection. These would have been viewed by famous artists during the 1800s. And these are painters that have still been inspiring artists today. They are ones like Monet, Pissarro, and Cézanne. Gauguin also employed similar outline styles as seen in the prints. Of these artists, Paul Cézanne seemed to be the most influenced by Hokusai. He produced a series of paintings using the mountain Sainte-Victoire as the subject matter. There were over 30 done in that series, much like the 36 views of Mount Fuji that Hokusai did. Besides these artists, Hokusai's manual most likely influenced artists that have drawn cartoons. His manga broke down figures into squares and circles, which is very similar to how figures are formed in comic books and animation today. The Great Wave has become a staple in our culture as an aesthetic. Christine Guth has pointed out that the image has been widely adapted to style and advertised merchandise, including home furnishings, clothing and accessories, beauty products, food and wine, stationery, and books. Most of the goods that trade on its celebrity status, however, are neither manufactured in Japan nor primarily dependent on the commodification of the Japanese aesthetic or locale, meaning it doesn't really represent Japan anymore at all. She also points out that the Great Wave seems to transcend cultural and national identity because it's used in other Asian nations and in Western culture. Many famous impressionists, like Monet, were fond of Hokusai's work. Again, these were highly influential painters and paintings that shaped much of the arts in the 20th century. it wasn't just Hokusai that was influential in these art movements, but he was a big part of it. Hokusai helped change our art world, and that is easily why the Great Wave is still a big part of our pop culture today. So I hope this helped you find out more of where common images and even emoji come from. Have you seen the Great Wave somewhere near you? Leave a comment on this video and be sure to like it, and subscribe to the channel for more theme park and theme park arts videos.